It's time for the news of the week. It's brought to you by Eagle Mortgage. Thank you to Holly Schneiderwind and her team at Eagle Mortgage for making this possible. They've been doing mortgages for well over 30 years. And we always say, if you're thinking about buying a new house, talk to Holly or one of her mortgage brokers about getting a pre-approval letter. You want to be armed with the ultimate weapon and shield, and that's a pre-approval letter from Eagle Mortgage. It's a competitive housing market out there, still is, even though it's not quite as wild and crazy as it was a couple years ago, still competitive at a lot of price levels. Get your pre-approval letter from Eagle Mortgage. And by the way, they're not a bank. They have access to multiple banks, so they can get you the best deal for your right situation. You can find them in person, 114th and Davenport Street, or online at eaglemortgagecompany.com. Trenton, so many things in the news. First of all, today we have a new Kia dealership is planned for the corner of 180th and Burke Street. This is going to be in West Village Point, going to be part of a mixed-use development. The Omaha Planning Board this week, approved a final plat for this multi-phase development. The Kia dealership will be H&H, 34,000 square foot building, will be accompanied by a new car wash facility. That's phase 2. Phase 1 is a 10,000 square foot restaurant building just west of Core Bank's headquarters. And then the final phase of this project will be the development of a multi-family residential building with 24 apartment flats. This is another example of a lot of growth in that West Dodge corridor.
Absolutely. I happened to be at a event last night with Steve Hinchcliffe, who owns Onyx and Kia and H&H, and wonderful person, and done a lot of great stuff with his son, Jeff. And this will be the third Kia dealership. They're finishing one up over at Steel Ridge on 370 and I-80. There's one in Council Bluffs, and then this one. And I don't know exactly what's going to be there, but that restaurant site might be a strip center. It might be a few different food items and food places and things like that.
Well, and being that close to Village Point and the demographics in that area and Dodge Street, I would imagine you could probably actually support a few more restaurants in that area.
I mean, I wish I could talk about it, but I've got a client that's going to build an 8,000 square foot restaurant over by that hotel, be very visible from Dodge Street, and then also from 180th.
Can't talk about it? What's it rhyme with? What's the first letter?
Let's just say it rhymes with tweaks.
Okay. Methodist Jenny Edmondson Hospital and Acadia Healthcare Company recently broke ground on a $55 million behavioral health building in Council Bluffs. The exact address is 3620 South 24th Street. If you're familiar with that area, there are a bunch of sports fields kind of west of there, so it'd be near that. This behavioral health hospital will have 96 inpatient beds, 24 of which will be dedicated for kids and adolescents. The new hospital will create 200 new jobs and should be open in early 2026. And sadly, we've had a terrible shortage of mental health care and facilities, so this will be a step in the right direction.
Yeah, we might want to ask why we need so many more mental health facilities, if it's social media or whatever, but probably for another show. But if you think about it, over the last couple of decades, Jeff, on this radio program, we've talked about how the red meat for construction and architects and stuff has been schools and houses of worship, and now it seems like it's medical.
Yeah.
Think about the amount. CHI just opened like a 55,000 square foot facility near 72nd, and their Emmanuel was Emmanuel Hospital from North Omaha. It's an awesome project. You've got the children's mental health facility that's getting done on like 86th and Dodge. So more and more of these medical facilities keep opening up, and hopefully we're looking at the root causes of some of these conditions rather than just keeping them perpetuated.
Yeah, and by the way, we also, to add to your healthcare construction comments, Trenton, are on the front end of a $2.2 billion hospital at the Med Center, although that's several years away from actually opening. Clarity Development Company plans to rehabilitate 2 historic buildings in the Flatiron District downtown. Each building will be converted into low-income housing tax credit multifamily units. The first one is a 3-story building at 1501 Howard Street that will have 16 apartments in it and some ground floor retail parking in the basement. That one was going to be renovated into apartments a while back by a different developer. It fell through. It's a building that is immediately west of the current police headquarters. So that'll be kind of a nice historic reuse. And then a few blocks further west at 500 South 18th Street, Clarity Development plans on renovating a 6-story building called The Standard. That would have, looks like about 40 apartments. Like I said, it's 6 stories and would also have some commercial space on the ground level. Now, the same developer at one point was also, by this Standard building, going to build a big new building that's on the site of a current surface parking lot. We don't know what the status of that is. The impression I get from what went through planning board is that the focus is on these historic buildings for now.
Yeah, I think it's great. And you start getting into historic tax credits, tax increment financing, and they seem to have it down on how to make that work. And they're complicated financing structures. They're when you're subsidizing housing and things like that. And for all of the people that are on our Facebook page or Groma page, that every time a ground up project happens that's market rate, they chime and say, well, where is it for the lower end? We can't afford these, everything else. Here's an example, and there's a lot more examples of low income housing and mixed income housing, and we're getting housing on all fronts throughout the greater Omaha area.
Well, we know that education is a big part of the growth and development of our metro area. And good news, the University of Nebraska Foundation again broke a fundraising record, receiving nearly $389 million in new funds in the most recent fiscal year. And that far exceeded the $354.5 million raised last year. 5th consecutive year annual giving to the University Foundation has surpassed $300 million. So to all you donors, good job taking care of Omaha's future and keeping us competitive in the education
And that was
world.
before last week's game.
Yeah, maybe that may have helped.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Let's hope we beat Colorado.
Yeah, maybe tonight's game might help a little bit more if all goes well. American Airlines is bringing back nonstop flights to Philadelphia International Airport. We had these for a while, for several years, and then lost them around pandemic time. That actually, a lot of people think, oh, Philadelphia, big deal. Philadelphia is one of the 10 biggest metro areas in the United States, monster business center. And we really needed these back. And the good news is, now the bad news is they don't start till June. So you have darn near a year to wait. The good news is they're doing 2 a day.
Do you think it's a bunch of frackers that are going over there?
We don't know, but we know
a lot of frackers in Pennsylvania.
I'm thinking they're a little further west than Philadelphia.
Okay.
But 2 a days starting June 5th, and that'll be a nice addition, nonstops from Epley to the city of brotherly love. Now, after more than 100 years in business, got some sad news. Woolner's Grocery Store. It's actually Woolner's Neighborhood Grocery Store, permanently closing at 32nd and Dodge in Midtown Crossing. The owners have decided to retire. Well, you hear that and you think, okay, maybe things weren't going so well, because
they would have sold it.
Why wouldn't you have sold it? Yeah. So, in fact, someone said, oh, that's not a good sign. And some said, well, the owners are retiring. Well, kind of weird that they wouldn't have sold it.
Well, and there's parking there. It's not the most walkable area except for the residents and things like that.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that more variety and probably more price competition on a Baker's or something like that down the street.
Grocery is a tough business, and especially it's very volume oriented. And in fact, for years, Woolner's had that radio commercial that made fun of the volume grocery stores. But that's tough. People really love Woolner's, and it was a real nice part of that neighborhood. We hope that another grocery store will take its place at some point in time. We also know that there is a lot of talk about a grocery store going into downtown proper, a little bit to the east. The mayor has hinted about this several times and has indicated that multiple developers are working very hard. There's talk possibly Civic Square, possibly Builders District, possibly somewhere along Farnham or Harney on the future streetcar route. So I don't think we'll have a so-called food desert in the urban core for long, but it is sad to see Woolner's go.
And just so you know, even though we've been talking about this for 21 years on this show, that doesn't mean we're going to stop broadcasting once downtown gets this sizable grocery store, because that was one of the things that we started with, if you remember.
Yeah, we've long stated our belief that a full-service grocery store in the downtown area will accelerate more residential growth. We're already doing great with residential growth there, but I am convinced that once that opens, you'll see an acceleration of downtown residential growth.
Well, and we're getting parking garages, and we're getting a ton of multifamily housing, some single family, but that's all part of it to make it viable.
And also a lot of growth in the Millwork Commons area, which we're going to talk about in the next segment. All sorts of activity planned for this Millwork Commons district, which is north of Charles Schwab Field in North Downtown. But before we get to that, we have to wrap up our news of the week, which is brought to you by Eagle Mortgage.
If you like this video, be sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons. And remember, Grow Omaha is not just media. This is a mission. We are trying to build up Omaha and make it an even better place. We can only do that with your help. Share this video with your friends, neighbors, and family.